I've always been a skeptic when it comes to ghost stories. The legends of our school, Hollowbrook High, were nothing more than tales told by thrill-seeking students around a campfire. That was until I experienced the unexplainable horrors that lurked within the very walls of our school. It was a gloomy autumn afternoon, the kind that makes the air feel heavy with secrets. As I walked through the front gates of Hollowbrook High, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. The old brick building loomed before me, its windows darkened with decades of grime and neglect. The rumors whispered among students hinted at a sinister past, but I had never paid them much attention until now. My day started like any other. Classes dragged on, and the hours seemed to stretch into eternity. But it was during third period, in room 203, that the ordinary world began to unravel. The teacher, Mrs. Hargrove, had stepped out to make some copies, leaving us alone in the room. As we chatted and passed notes, a chilling breeze swept through the classroom, extinguishing the flickering fluorescent lights. A collective gasp rippled through the class as we found ourselves plunged into darkness. I fumbled for my phone, using its dim screen to cast a feeble glow on the room. Shadows danced along the walls, and the air grew frigid. The classroom was now cloaked in an oppressive silence, broken only by the faint hum of the emergency lights in the hallway. We tried to remain calm, joking nervously about power outages. But then, I heard it, a faint, eerie whisper that seemed to come from every corner of the room. It was as if unseen voices were murmuring secrets we were not meant to hear. "Did you hear that?" I whispered to my friend, Sarah, sitting beside me. She nodded, her wide eyes reflecting the fear I felt deep within. Suddenly, the whispering intensified, growing louder and more frantic. The words were unintelligible, a cacophony of eerie voices overlapping in a disconcerting symphony of dread. Panic surged through the class, and students began to shout and scream, drowning out the ghostly chorus. Just as the terror reached its peak, the lights flickered back to life, and Mrs. Hargrove returned, unaware of the chaos that had unfolded in her absence. We tried to explain, but our words sounded absurd even to our own ears. She dismissed our claims as a collective hallucination and carried on with the lesson. As the days passed, strange occurrences became routine at Hollowbrook High. Muffled footsteps echoed in the empty hallways when no one was there. Lockers creaked open and slammed shut of their own accord. And students whispered about sightings of shadowy figures out of the corners of their eyes. But it was the library that held the darkest secret. One rainy afternoon, I found myself seeking solace among the musty shelves of forgotten books. The library was bathed in an eerie greenish light, courtesy of the ancient stained glass windows. As I browsed the dusty tomes, I heard a faint, mournful melody that seemed to come from the shadows. My curiosity got the better of me, and I followed the haunting melody to the back of the library. There, I discovered an old, weathered piano covered in a white sheet. Its keys beckoned me, and before I knew it, my trembling fingers began to play the mournful tune. The notes filled the air, resonating with sorrow and despair. It was as if the very soul of the school was pouring out through the piano. The room grew colder, and the greenish light dimmed further. I tried to stop playing, but my hands moved of their own accord, dancing across the keys. Then, as if in response to my unwitting command, the library's stained glass windows shattered, showering me with shards of glass. I stumbled back, blood oozing from my cuts, as the melody reached a crescendo of anguish. It was as if the spirits of Hollowbrook High were expressing their torment through the music. I fled the library, vowing never to return, but the haunting tune continued to echo in my mind. I couldn't escape the feeling that I had awakened something malevolent within the school, something that had been dormant for far too long. As the weeks turned into months, the school's malevolence intensified. Students began to disappear, one by one, leaving behind only whispers of their existence. No one dared to mention the missing students to the faculty or the authorities. It was as if they had never existed. I could no longer deny the truth. The legends were real, and Hollowbrook High was cursed. I spent sleepless nights researching the school's history, digging through old yearbooks and newspaper clippings. It was then that I discovered the horrifying truth. Decades ago, the school had been the site of a tragic fire that claimed the lives of numerous students and teachers. The fire had been caused by a faulty electrical system, but the whispers I had heard in room 203 and the mournful melody in the library told a different story. The spirits of those who had perished that fateful day were trapped within the school, their restless souls seeking vengeance. Determined to put an end to the haunting, I gathered a group of brave students who had also experienced the supernatural horrors of Hollowbrook High. Armed with knowledge of the school's dark past and a plan to perform a ritual of appeasement, we ventured into the depths of the building one fateful night. We lit candles and recited incantations, attempting to communicate with the vengeful spirits. As we did, the temperature dropped, and the walls seemed to close in around us. The spirits appeared before us, their ethereal forms writhing in agony. With trembling voices, we apologized for the fire, expressing our sorrow and remorse. We begged for forgiveness on behalf of the living and promised to remember their pain. The spirits hesitated, their mournful gazes fixed upon us. Then, in a final, chilling whisper, they accepted our apology and slowly dissipated into the ether. The oppressive darkness that had plagued Hollowbrook High for generations began to lift, and the school's sinister atmosphere gradually faded away. From that day forward, Hollowbrook High was no longer haunted by the tormented spirits of the past. The missing students were never found, their fates forever entwined with the school's grim history. But the horrors that had plagued us were gone, and I had learned a valuable lesson. Sometimes, the stories we dismiss as mere legends turn out to be the darkest truths of all.